Kombucha leather is a flexible biomaterial alternative to natural leather. It's made from cellulose nanofibers spun by bacteria and yeast. What? Unbelievable. It's true. Amazing. This material grows thicker over time and can become paper thin or leather-like. Kombucha leather is a relatively new material that costs around $10 to $20 per square foot. Another name for this is SCOBY leather. It's a flexible and durable biomaterial made from the symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. SCOBY. Symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. You got it. It's made by feeding a SCOBY colony, the yeast colony, a mixture of tea, sugar, and vinegar, which is then fermented over several days to create this gel-like film. It's then harvested and used as a leather alternative. Kombucha leather is an environmentally friendly alternative as it is biodegradable and does not involve a lot of chemicals for its production process. The production process is pretty unique. It's made through essentially fermentation and cellulose production. However, the exact methods can certainly vary among manufacturers and people who produce it. So here's just like an overview of the steps that are usually involved to make this. The first is preparing the kombucha culture. This is the SCOBY. You could even call it SCOBY if you want, and you have a little nickname friend for your new material. You could buy SCOBY from a health food store online, or you can grow it on your own by fermenting sweet tea with a bottle of store-bought kombucha. And preparing that sweet tea is easy. Just basically brew a batch of sweet tea, sweeten it with sugar, and the SCOBY will then feed on that sugar to produce cellulose. It's usually around a ratio of about 1 cup of sugar for every gallon of tea. So next up, you could add the SCOBY to the tea, and once the sweet tea has cooled to room temperature, it's time for the SCOBY to hop on in. Actually, pour it in. It's not hopping anywhere. It's just bacteria. It's important to note that the tea is not too hot at this point, as the temperatures at that point can make the bacteria growth of the SCOBY far less efficient. Next up, you ferment the tea, essentially covering the container with a cloth or coffee filter and secure it with a rubber band. This is going to allow air to flow in and out while keeping out dust and insects. Just leave that container at room temperature, out of direct sunlight, and let that tea ferment for about 1 to 2 weeks. All right, it's harvest time. Harvesting the SCOBY. So after fermentation, a layer of cellulose will generally form on the surface of that tea. This is the kombucha leather. This layer will be carefully removed, and then at that point, it should be a little thick and rubbery. Rinse and dry the kombucha leather under cold water, and this will help remove any residual tea, and then lay it flat on a clean surface and let it dry. This could take several days to a week, depending upon the thickness of the leather and the humidity in your area. After that, you can condition it. Once it's dry, it will generally become hard and brittle. So to make it flexible again, you need to condition it. This can be done by rubbing it with a natural oil or conditioner to help give some of that moisture back into it. Now it's time to use it. Now that it's prepared, it can be used in various ways, cut and sewn and molded and shaped, just like most natural leathers can be. Often it can be used for clothing, accessories, even upholstery. It's pretty limitless in terms of how you may choose to use this. At cost per square foot, you could generally expect it to be around $10 to $20 on average, depending upon the manufacturer, the quality of the process, the volume that you're purchasing, the availability of it. That will all contribute into that factoring range of around $10 to $20 per square foot. Let's look at a few pros. So one, kombucha leather is a relatively sustainable material. It's important, to differentiate that it's actually not leather at all. This is essentially a different material. And just like a, synthetic leather or vegan leathers, it's called leather because it may, have some similar kind of looks and feels, a little bit-ish, and kind of some same end uses. Then it makes it more exciting. You could say, hey, use this instead of that. So it's referred to as kombucha leather. But just to be clear, it helps to be educated. It's not actually leather. It's a totally different material altogether. There are some great uses for it, so we're going to dive into those. Just important to realize that there is a difference in the overall material, versus a natural leather. All right, so it is a relatively sustainable material in that it's plant-based and can basically be grown the more that you need it. So depending on the scale of the operation, this can be something that can be ongoing, and you could have a lot of leather, You could have a lot of this material essentially growing all the time as you're producing with it, which is a pretty phenomenal change from our usual approach, buying the material and then using it that way. It's also biodegradable. And so that's another win here, because as we make it and use it in goods, it can also kind of go back into that full circle, which can be an excellent characteristic of this material. Looking at some cons, it's still a relatively new type of material, and so it can be tricky to get. So there are a lot of benefits to it, but one con may be simply availability. As that changes, we hope to see it more accessible. But right now, if you're looking to get it, that may be a con factoring element in your project planning. Another one is cost. As any new material comes out, this is common across industries, the price is going to be higher. So hopefully we could see, as this becomes more available and more used and essentially scaled up, that those prices can come down to make it even more accessible to more crafters. And it might not be as soft as some natural leathers. So there are some cases where that may be a con, other cases where that may be an advantage. So just keep that in mind if you're choosing this for a project. Let's look at a few really good uses for kombucha leather. One is going to be bags. It's a very durable, water resistant material. So things like tote bags, backpacks, and purses can be great choices. It can work well for shoes. It's comfortable, relatively breathable, and somewhat durable. So it can be great for sneakers, boots, sandals, and things like that. And then even for accessories, wallets and belts and jewelry, or home decor, coasters, placemats, lampshades, and even for clothing, jackets, skirts, and dresses. So there's a wide variety of things you could do with this. It's definitely a unique material and will produce some pretty unique projects. So here are a few tips for working with kombucha leather. Make sure if you're planning a project that you're going to use this for, that you're aware of its end use environment. Since when this type of leather gets wet, it may actually soften. You're going to want to know that before creating something that's going to be used, say, primarily outdoors. If you are going to do that, consider adding a type of a surface protectant, a waterproofer or something, to essentially reduce the impact of that water on the finished good so that whoever is using it has a good experience with it. And also factor in, kombucha leather may not be as durable in the long term as natural leather. So if you are making a project with this, factor that into the design as well, so that if it's something that you're going to be using hard in extreme environments every day, that you protect it right so that the material underneath the kombucha still stays sturdy and lasts as long as you need it to. So there you have it, a look into a very new, innovative material, kombucha leather. It's pretty much an open opportunity in terms of making cool things with this. We're probably going to see more and more of it as time goes on and the availability increases. So if you're looking to try something that few people have done before and can lead to some really exciting results, take a look at kombucha leather.